Today, we're going to be talking about the 5 ways to kick off 2024. These are the ways I like to do it, and I've shared with many of my property management brainstorm consulting clients. These are my recommendations on the top ways that you could kick off your companies and really be ready to hit it hard come January.
Welcome to the Property Management Brainstorm Show with Bob Preston. Bob is the lead consultant and podcast host at Property Management Brainstorm, the consulting and strategic planning company dedicated to the property management industry. This podcast is for property managers and company owners seeking an in-depth look into current trends toward adding doors, growing recurring revenue, and building a high-profit property management business. You'll hear from leading professionals on hot topics, success stories, and strategies for expanding your company and assuring your property portfolios are managed efficiently. Now, here is your host, Bob Preston.
Hello, brainstormers, and welcome to our last episode of 2023. I can't believe it, how quickly this year has gone by. This is Bob Preston, your host. Happy to soon be ringing in 2024. Man, the year just went by so quickly, it's hard to believe. As always, today I'm broadcasting from our Property Management Brainstorm studio in Del Mar, California. If you're new here, man, we would sure appreciate that you subscribe so you get access to all of our great episodes. And if you like what you hear, please pay it forward with a positive review. Now, before we dive in today, I want to give a quick shout out to our amazing sponsors for helping support the podcast. We've got some fantastic companies that are industry icons for sure, including Upkeep Media, SureVestor, VPM Solutions, RentScale, Z-Inspector, Showdigs, Blanket, Latchel, APM Help, and today's feature sponsor, Second Nature, who you will hear more about in a brief mid-roll about halfway through the episode. I hope all my listeners are working on kicking off the new year for their property management business, or preparing for it, I should say. Personally, I love this time of year because I always work on productive ways to dive in come at January. I'm just like chomping at the bit to get started. And typically what I'm doing is I'm budgeting, I'm forecasting for the coming year. But, you need to look at all these different things. Is my organization ready along with me to dive in? Will they know what is expected of them and have their goals in place? Well, you get the idea, right? So what better topic to share today than what I'm going to call Bob's 5 ways to kick off 2024. Here we go. Have a listen. I love this time of year, as I mentioned, because it kind of anticipates the coming year and it gets the entire company ready to charge come January. Okay. So these are what I used to do with all my businesses and what I recommend with my consulting clients as well within my property management brainstorm consulting business practice. So I'm going to rattle them off and then we're going to talk about each one individually, but certainly the first and foremost thing is making sure that there's a strategic plan going into the new year. Now broadcasting in December, if you haven't already done this, you should be doing this right away so that you have a forecast, a budget, a plan for the doors added, for your head count, for your expense lines. These are all really critical things. I always like to, number 2, have a check-in with my organization. So what does that mean, a check-in with the organization? Well, what are your people thinking? How are they feeling about the business? Where things are headed? What does the culture look like? Am I seeing everything I need to see within the organization? Number 3, making sure everyone knows what to do. Okay. Setting goals. I like to call it an accountability chart. So everyone knows what their duties and tasks are, and everybody has goals or KPIs, whatever you want to call them, to follow once they hit that new year, right? So they can hit things running. I've always enjoyed and anticipated and have always advocated having a kickoff meeting, right? So host a meeting, right? Get everybody on the same page. You can go over all these things and kind of give that inspirational leadership to your team to get things started and charged right away in January. Number 5, this is kind of a fun one. I call it the 15% budget trim challenge. I think this is different than your forecast and your plan because it's something that I always took upon myself to make sure I did. I did my very best after we kicked off to dive in and try to trim 15% from the budget, some of that fat that might be just kind of dragging the company down a little bit to, achieve new profitability goals. Okay, number one of the most critical aspects as you head into the new year is to make sure you have a strategic plan. I've done this hundreds of times for my businesses and also for my consulting clients. If it's something you'd like help with, I can certainly assist in doing that. You want to have a strategic plan, which includes a forecast and a budget. Certainly, you want to be forecasting your growth, your doors that you need to get under management. What attrition rates might you be expecting? What are your fees going to be? What's your gross profit, your headcount, your operating costs? These are all things that you should anticipate in advance because this is how you're going to be driving the future of your company. You're going to be rolling through the year and operating under this strategic plan. It's really, really important to have it in place. And it's not just a one and done. You need to tweak it along the way and make sure that your forecast and your actual are comparative, or otherwise you need to make adaptations along the way. I also, number two, like to have some kind of an organizational checkup. Okay, how are my people feeling about the business? Are they happy? How does our culture seem? Are we on the right track with people and where we're headed? I like to do what is offered on a website called Organizational Checkup. It's sponsored by the Entrepreneurial Operating System people, EOS, and it's a really simple survey. You can invite your team to come take. It's, I believe, 20 questions, and it measures your company in several really important ways. Your vision, whether you have the right people, the great vision might be in place, but do you have the right people, the right butts and seats? It helps identify any issues you might have in terms of what's going on in the business, the data and the objective numbers that provide a pulse, where things are at, your processes, and also, just overall, are you getting traction? I highly recommend it. Number three, you should have accountability and goals in place for every single person in the organization. Now, this may seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how many companies don't do this. There's lots of terms used for them. They could be called SMART goals. You've probably heard that term. KPIs. In the EOS vernacular, getting back to entrepreneurial operating system, they're called rocks. I don't care what you call them, but everyone in the organization should have them, and they should be measured either monthly or quarterly or over some specific amount of time. So they should be simple to understand, sensible, significant. They should be meaningful, right? And important to those individuals and motivating. And obviously they should be achievable, attainable, and realistic. And of course, time bound, again, for some period of time. That's what's known as the SMART goals, or the way of doing it. Every team member should have some form of goals, rocks, KPIs, whatever you want to call them. They should be measurable, and they should be reviewed on a regular basis with their supervisor. At Second Nature, we heart property managers. We know property managers have one of the toughest jobs around. So we create new solutions and technology to make your life easier while keeping residents and investors happy. Property managers have noticed that beyond reacting quickly to requests, residents want their needs proactively anticipated, and they're willing to pay and stay for it. Enter the Resident Benefits Package, designed to enhance the resident experience, simplify your job, and increase profits with no additional costs or work to you, because Second Nature will fully manage it for you. The RBP proactively brings what residents want and need by providing benefits to make their lives easier. It's one of the leading ways the best property managers set themselves apart from the crowd. See what over 1,500 property managers have already discovered for themselves. The Second Nature RBP is a triple win for residents, owners, and property managers. Number four, I always like to host a kickoff meeting every single year. And this is a chance for me to communicate to the team and tell people what I'm expecting of them and what it's going to take to have a great year. I think this is really, really important. It helps get everybody on the same page, right? So an agenda would be something like this. Hey, what I expect from each of you today. Here's a theme I have for the day. Okay, let's go through the organizational checkup results, share all that data that you have done through the organizational checkup through EOS. Talk about how the company's organized, who's doing what people are accountable for. Take a step back and review last year's results. Did we do what we said we were going to do? What were our accomplishments? What were our disappointments? what did the metrics look like in the KPIs as a company? Did we get the unit and revenue growth? Did we get the proper mix where our fees came from? These are all really important things you want to identify and cover from last year so that you can get everybody on the same page coming in the new year. Then you can get into your 2024 forecast and projections. And finally, kind of wrap up with some team recognition and celebration. Always a good thing to do. Number 5, this is kind of a fun one, but it's also really, really important. I think every company that I've ever worked with in my consulting business has, including my own, has some degree of budget creep, right? Occurs every single year. Maybe those apps that you impulsively signed off on to help the company and then nobody uses. Maybe it's the amount you're paying for your internet fees or your VoIP service on your phone. But I always like to try to trim 15% out of my budget. So I call this a 15% budget trim challenge. I think it's a really healthy thing for all companies to go through. And this is whether you're the CFO, the CEO, or maybe even your departmental budget. See what you can do to cut things down. One thing is, your office and lease agreement and office space, do you still need it? That could be a quick hit. If you can go virtual, get rid of that office, saves a lot of money. All subscriptions, Wi-Fi, telephone plan, software. I think a couple of years ago, I changed VoIP providers. I went from Nextiva, who was charging me, $300-400 a month. And I approached Zoom and they said, hey, we'll give it to you for free for 2.5 years. So right there, boom, I was saving $300-400 a month just on my VoIP service. Software, do you need everything you're still signed up for? Can you cut some of these things out? Recurring costs that often hit your credit card that you kind of forget about. Pour through 3 or 4 months of your credit card bill and see if there are things in there that you no longer need, right? And then outside services, your IT, how are you paying for photography? Do your people do it or do you have a photographer? Could that be renegotiated? Your accounting, your marketing, SEO, you get the idea. The whole idea here is to see if you can trim a little bit off your budget. I always like to shoot for 15%. So I hope these are helpful things. I helped a lot of companies launch every year. I'd be happy to do it for you if you're looking for somebody to help facilitate that launch process. Again, forecast and budget with your strategic plan, number 1. Number 2, do an organizational checkup. I recommend EOS. Number 3, set accountability and goals, rocks, SMART goals, whatever you want to call them. Make sure everybody knows what they're going to be doing. Host a kickoff meeting, number 4. And number 5, see if you can trim 15% from your budget for the coming year. Those are my 5 ways. Happy holidays, everybody. See y'all in January. And I'm really, really looking forward to the new year. We'll have more episodes coming from Property Management Brainstorm. Hope you've enjoyed it this year, and we'll see you in January 2024. As we wrap up today, I'd like to make a quick plug to our listeners to click on the subscribe button, give us a like, and if you would, please pay it forward with a positive review. Thank you for tuning in to Property Management Brainstorm, where we are always working hard to find new ways to advance the property management industry, and we will catch you next time.